Hello and welcome to the Deep NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boff. Mr. Boff, my man, how are we?
I'm great.
Great?
I'm great. Truly. And I'm excited to be here. How are you?
I'm good.
Not okay. Only good, not great.
Yeah, a little bit tired, but
Yeah.
you know.
What did you do last night?
Went out to
Yeah.
knock
Did
back-
we just are we about to dock
yeah,
Celeste?
do you want to start again? Knocked back a couple of had a bit of everything. Yeah. I tried most things on the superhero menu.
Yeah. Superhero menu.
Yeah. Did you see the cocktail menu?
They were superhero themed.
Yeah.
Well,
you were drinking Poison Ivy's green goblet or something.
Man, I was drinking Midorian lemonade.
Yeah, and they were all named after superheroes and shit.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because the Negroni was called L's Big Brain Beverage.
Big brain beverage.
Yep, and I don't know who L is.
Alessio.
No, it's superhero man.
Al.
Hey, did you call Alessio L?
No, but like.
That was a good nickname.
Yeah. His
Could be confused with Lucas though.
His like Wii name back in the day, or maybe his PlayStation name back in the day was like all capitals letters LSEO. He would have been about 10 when he figured that out, and he would have been like, "That's fucking sick."
Yeah.
That's fucking.
Do you know what my old PlayStation handle was?
What?
DJ_awesome33 with a 0 instead of an O.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mine was RST because on the keyboard, when you go to save your career mode in FIFA, the R, the S, and the T are the closest to where the cursor starts. So I just go bang, 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 save.
Far out,
RST. Good night though.
Last night was a movie.
at Alessa's siblings' 21st birthday party, even though they're 23 years old. So big shout out to Francesca and Dion. Happy birthday for July 2020. What a great time. I'm a bit shaken that the
You didn't know what you were ordering.
the drinks were themed. I just thought like this is a pretty sick Midorian lemonade concoction, and not for nothing, myself and friend of the pod Remy Picciani, we both went as Neo to this heroes and villains themed party. And it's not a big deal, but we both won best duo costume. We got presented with an award in front of the whole party, and everyone cheered for us, and it was a pretty nice moment. But the Midorian, the lemonade, part of the reason why I was drinking it is because it was this green concoction, and it was very Matrix vibes.
Yeah, okay.
I've only seen
blue, red pill, green drink.
Nah, but
that's the three options.
Nah, but you know in the Matrix when they show you the actual Matrix,
the green
and it's all
letters
green and there's wires
yeah.
and shit. Like I haven't seen the Matrix maybe for like 15 years, but that's my recollection of it.
Yeah, right.
Do you remember what the pills do? Which color is which? Because I actually had a bit of a blocked nose last night, so I brought some Codral, and the Codral is red.
And you went
so
right down the rabbit hole.
I had a red pill. But I don't know if that's Matrix or...
I think blue pill is the one where you keep going. Because there's r/blue pill, which is just a bunch of like neo-Nazis and conservatives who think they're woke by taking the blue pill.
Well, even leaving the neo-Nazis behind... If I was in the Matrix, I reckon I would have gone blue pill. If that means you just keep get to live in...
What, your normal life or going into the crazy?
No, live your normal life and you don't know what's going on. Because really, what is life? If I'm just a brain in a vat hooked up to some wires, then so be it. At least I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
You know, and fucking...
Then why do my farts stink so much?
Did Neo have a good time in the movies?
Nah.
Probably had a shit one.
Did you watch the new one?
Nah, I've seen the first one. Maybe I've seen 80% of it. And then the second one I watched all of. But I watched it in like maybe year 8 Italian for some reason. And like the substitute teacher was like, I don't want to watch The Matrix. And
that's so good. We just watched Cool Runnings every rainy day.
Yeah. We had Prince of Egypt in religion in year 7, 8, 9. Yeah. You ever see that?
No.
Oh, it's good.
What is it like? No, am I thinking of...
It's a cartoon.
Prince of Persia?
It's a Disney. Yeah. It's not Prince of Persia. not a Jake Gyllenhaal production. No, it's an animated like cartoon of Disney in like the 1990s, and it's about Moses leading the Jews out of Egypt.
Yeah, right.
But it's like Moses and Ramses the second, the pharaoh, and Moses was adopted and like brought up at the court of the pharaoh, and like he was essentially like Ramses' little brother, and then Moses grows up, Ramses becomes the pharaoh, Moses like reconnects with his people, reconnects with his Jewish identity, and then he says, bro, it's pretty cooked that you're keeping my people as slaves, and Ramses essentially says, what are you going to do about it? And then Moses essentially says, and this is spoiler alert, Moses essentially says, I'm going to take them all out of Egypt. But seriously, the Bible's been out for about 2,000 years now. So if you haven't actually caught up with these events yet, like, that's on you. Moses says, I'm going to take the Jews out of Egypt. And then Ramses says, good luck. There's a fucking sea in the way. Have fun. And then Moses says, watch this. And obviously the rest is history.
I thought, wasn't that the plot to like the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movie?
Haven't seen it.
With Kaya Scalderia. Where,
I haven't seen it.
What's his name? Johnny Depp parts the sea.
Is that the one with the guy with the tentacle face?
Yeah, most of them have him.
Yeah.
What's his name? Davy Jones.
That's Davy Jones?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty sick.
Is this a natural jumping off point to talk about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial? Or should we talk about some basketball?
It may be a podcast, and we may be two white dudes, but maybe not this one. It's actually funny you mentioned the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, because two other people that don't get along are Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets, or Kyrie Irving.
That was an all-timer. That was an all-timer.
But this, all jokes aside, this is probably going to be the biggest podcast we've ever recorded.
Yeah, there's actually fucking heaps to get through.
Yeah, I'm so happy we did this today, not yesterday or the day before, because like I wrote an article on Jalen Brunson's fit with the New York Knicks, and that went live 2 days ago. And we probably won't get to Jalen Brunson until the end, because it's the least important thing that's actually happened. When a week ago it was the biggest news. Stuff just keeps happening. I think we've come to a plateau where, unless Kevin Durant gets traded, everything we talk about today will still be relevant for a little while. But this seems like a busier free agency than in recent years. And just absolutely almost every deal has been tampered with. Like, why do we know the years, the dollar amount, what position he's going to play for all these dudes 3 days before free agency opens? Like,
well, who did we know? We knew Brunson.
We knew Brunson, but there was some like, fuck, don't put me on the spot, don't they?
Well, I would say that this doesn't feel quite as busy to me, or maybe it was because of the cloak and dagger nature. But 3 off seasons ago, when Kawhi and Paul George went to the Clippers, that one was like.
Yeah.
Maybe it was less busy on the whole, but that move in particular was like seismic, and because it came out of nowhere.
I guess, and you also had that meant OKC's breaking up, and Russell Westbrook got traded.
Yeah. OKC is well and truly breaking up. There's going to be 1 million picks. Not only has Kawhi gone, but he's like played the Lakers against the Clippers to get Paul George to come to LA to join the Clippers. Like, heaps going on.
Well, an interesting tidbit from that is that when that happened, and John Hollinger mentioned this when he talks about Kevin Durant landing spots, is that Kawhi wanted, bless you, is that Kawhi actually wanted to
Excuse me, where's the bloody cough button on this thing?
Kawhi wanted to bring Kevin Durant with him to the Clippers, and wasn't able to do that because, I think, was he still in Golden State at the moment, or he had just gone to Brooklyn? Jamie, pull that one out.
Yeah, fucking hell. Sorry about that.
You alright? Do you want a tish, mate?
No, they come in threes, so we should be safe.
So yeah, he actually wanted Kevin Durant to come with him to the Clippers in the first place,
which would have been unfair.
Well, we thought Paul George was going to be unfair.
Yeah, but I actually kind of don't rate Paul George.
But at the time, I think we all rated him higher.
And he was just coming off that season in OKC where he came third in MVP.
Yeah, and he wasn't like a flight risk in the playoffs and stuff, and he wasn't a bit of a weirdo that we
he was a flight risk in the playoffs back then.
You reckon?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess Dame hit the shot.
He didn't have playoff P and way off P like labels until he got to the Clippers, but he had never gotten like outside of that 1 year in Indiana, he had never gotten out of the first round.
No, 2 years they went to the conference finals because they went against LeBron.
Yeah, true.
David West, Roy Hibbert, George Hill in his prime, and when he went bald.
George Hill.
Yeah, George Hill went bald and he goes blonde. Oh, sorry, blonde, not bald.
Oh, I was going to say, fucking hell.
He went blonde.
He had a Caruso moment. Yeah, I remember when he went blonde.
Yeah.
You know what was actually a bit of a wig out, just to change the topic to the English Premier League quickly.
Holy crap. Who said that?
I'm watching a compilation of the best free kicks from the 21-22 season.
As you do.
The 10 best free kicks. James Ward-Prowse from Southampton had 4 of them. So just quietly, maybe the best dead ball specialist the game's ever seen in the Premier League. Anyway, the last one is Marcos Alonso from Chelsea. He scores on the opening day of the season, a beautiful curled free kick. And in the celebrations, I see Jorginho. And Jorginho, I remember at the start of the season, I'd forgotten this. Jorginho had bleached his hair. He came back from his summer vacation with bleached hair, and he was rolling around just pulling the strings in the midfield for the first month of the season with bleached hair. And then the wheels kind of fell off after that. So maybe there's an analogue there with with George Hill, who's bleached his hair, and maybe did it all kind of go downhill after the bleach? Broadly speaking, yes.
Yeah, alright.
Anyway, as you were.
So Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. This is pretty serious. This happened a day after Kyrie Irving picked up his player option to remain with the Nets. He had some weird tweet where he says like, "Only I know what I want to do, and I'm so confident in what I do."
Oh, I just fucking hate him.
That in itself is fuck. But then Kevin Durant goes, "Yep, I'm gone."
Yeah.
Also, it happened hours after Ben Simmons uploaded a photo of him working out, saying like grind season.
Yeah.
Is this thing on, by the way? Like, unironically, are you recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Of course.
I just forgot. And what the flip?
Yeah. Well, I'll jump in here because listeners will know that I'm fed up with this whole saga, and I think that this is just the price that the Brooklyn Nets have to pay, and more specifically that the individuals involved, the big three that was assembled in Brooklyn, has to pay for doing business with each other. They all best mates, all want to play together. Kyrie Irving is a complete loon. So Harden and KD bear responsibility for deciding to get into bed with a complete loon. Harden, it has been quite obvious for several years now, is not someone who is like taking care of his body particularly well. He's not someone whose conditioning is top notch. He's not someone who's lasting 100 games every year. So hitching your wagon to him, they deserve some responsibility for that. Kevin Durant probably comes out the best in all of this because he hasn't really done anything, but at the same time, he is one of the more sensitive players in the league to criticism, and obviously not afraid to clap back to any criticism from anyone on social media. And this is something that I did see on social media, but I think it's interesting. I've never been critical of Kevin Durant for going to Golden State or his reasons behind going to Golden State, but someone pointed out that he left OKC to go to the team that had eliminated him from the playoffs, that was the best team in NBA history, left them to go and start a new super team and do it on his own.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't work, the two teams that he requests a trade to are the 1 seed and the 1 seed. So there's potentially something there. Like there's a pattern of behavior. And then for the Nets, organizationally, like this was a commentary that was going on at the time when they assembled this team, that they traded the good vibes Nets. Kenny Atkinson had taken them from like moribund franchise still smouldering in the ruins of the Boston trade to good vibes Nets. They were really smart with their picks. They developed guys like Karis LeVert. They bought low on D'Lo. Brook Lopez had a great season there. Turned it all around. And there was people saying like, you're trading that away by assembling this team, which is not known. The players in this team are not known for being like culture guys.
Yeah.
And they did it anyway, and it's fucking backfired in a spectacular way. And I have no sympathy or like this. I think this is kind of what you get when you go so far towards just the assembly of talented basketball players without thinking about the people that you're assembling. And I think that it is in many ways a Faustian pact where you make a deal with the devil and you get what you asked for. You get 3 of the best 20 players in the league on the same team in their primes. They all want to play together.
Yeah.
But somehow, inevitably, it doesn't work out for you. And the biggest, like, the number that probably sums it all up is 16 games they played together over 2.5 seasons. 16 fucking games. What a piss take. Anyway, thanks for listening to my little soliloquy.
All right, so moving on from the hot mess that is Brooklyn, what do you think? So he's obviously requested a trade and said that his preferred destinations are the Miami Heat and the Phoenix Suns. You've got some dark horses in there in the Lakers and the Clippers, and while Kevin Durant has shown no interest in going to Toronto, the Toronto Raptors might have the best package and might be the best fit, and they can send, I reckon, like 5 packages that make sense for both sides here. So where do you want to see him go, and how do you want to see it happen?
Well, I think the number one thing to consider is that Kyrie obviously opted in, so he's on a 1-year, $37 million deal. Kevin Durant's got 4 years left, so he doesn't have any leverage. So if he doesn't want to go to Toronto and Toronto offers the best package, they can just say, bad luck. I think the Lakers, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why Durant wants to leave is most likely because he doesn't want to play with Kyrie. Because he's had enough of being with Kyrie. I want to get away from this guy. I want to get away from this team. I want to get away from this guy. The only way that a workable Lakers trade exists is if it's Durant for Davis 1-for-1, which I don't think the Lakers would do.
The Lakers said they're not trading him.
Or it's a Westbrook, Durant, Irving, throw salary in there. Picks. Maybe you have to throw Davis in there as well, but there's no way that one of them can get to the Lakers without the other one going as well. So they're not going to get traded to the same place. So I think the Lakers are removed as an option. Let's start with the Suns, and I'm extremely trepidatious about this because the prospect of adding him actually doesn't excite me as much as I thought it would, because obviously you throw DA in there. Complicated because he has to be signed and then traded, and that could delay the trade by days, weeks, whatever, whilst both teams make moves around the margins to get their salary sheets aligned. Throw DA in there, but then what else has to go in there? Obviously there'll be picks, you can haggle over that, sure. Does it have to be Mikal Bridges? Or is there a way that you can throw in Cam Johnson, Saric, Crowder, 2 first-round picks and 2 swaps? Does that do it? Because I really actually don't want to let Mikal Bridges out the door. Like he averaged 13 points last season, and I'm saying, like, I don't want to put him in the Kevin Durant trade, but
I get you. Like he might be the best 3-and-D wing, not named Andrew Wiggins right now. But the thing is, like, I think it would hurt to get rid of one of the best role players on the planet, but I honestly think you will win the title if you have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and who's your starting centre? Bismack Biyombo now. Like, you got no...
Well, we traded for Jock Landale.
Yeah, true. But who's like the starting 4? And
well, Saric is coming back. You bump Crowder, Crowder or Johnson up, and either of them can play the 4. Torrey Craig.
Cam Johnson's still cheap at the moment.
He's got 1 more year. He's extension eligible. So he'll be a restricted at the end of next season.
But 1 more year on his I
think he's $5 million hit for this year.
That's a pretty good lineup though. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Cam Johnson, KD, and let's say Bismack Biyombo, just like a rim rolling big. Like, you can win a title with that. I think.
I mean, it sounds pretty fucking good, but I guess I haven't fully like reconciled with where things are at, because for me, I've been saying this the last 6 weeks. The option 1A is just to bring the crew back together, sign DA to his extension, and say, like, all right, give it a year. If it's really fucked up, we'll just trade you. We can get better return for you if you're locked up for 4 years versus if we're signing and trading you. And this team won 64 games. The team could have won 66, 67 because there was a few games at the end that we rested blokes. Like, this is like that was one of the 20 best regular season teams of all time. Yeah. And the NBA's been around for fucking 80 years. So to be one of the 20 best, you're talking...
Yeah, 100%.
You're talking like the absolute, 0.01 percentile of fucking NBA seasons that we just turned in.
Yeah.
Rolling that back doesn't sound like a bad idea, especially with all of the guys that we needed locked up, assuming that you just bring DA back. All the role players are locked up.
Yeah. I don't see it's gotten so bad. I don't see any way in which you keep him.
It's not I'm seeing now that that's not realistic, but I haven't kind of let go of the desire to just keep things in place and say Devin Booker was first team All NBA.
Yeah.
Chris Paul is Chris fucking Paul. If he can get any injury luck in the playoffs, then we'll make a run.
Yeah.
Mikal Bridges is the best role player, and part of the reason why I don't want to let him go necessarily, and this is something that my friend and fellow Suns fan Nathan Jones, shout out Nathan, said, but part of the reason why you want to keep Mikal is because he's a culture guy as well. He's a guy who's come in from when the team was shit, he's stuck around, he's worked hard, he's developed as the team has developed, and now he's an all NBA, an all defensive player, he's the best role player in the league. Those are the guys you want to kind of keep. It's kind of like with, we'll touch on this later, but the Wolves and the Jazz trading, and Utah really wanted Jaden McDaniels included in the trade, and the Wolves, as I said, we're not putting him in the trade. He's a role player, he's a 23-year-old guy, he's not actually that good.
Is that real?
Yeah, it's true. They said we'll throw in extra picks because we don't want to give him up.
Really?
That's kind of how I feel about Mikal. What's the point in bringing in Kevin Durant if you strip down all the things that made this team who it is, what it is? Yeah.
I completely agree, but I think you should pump the brakes a little bit. At the end of the day,
he averaged 13 points.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then does what's the package then? Is it's DA, Mikal, and then we go on 2 picks, 2 swaps, or more?
Nah. I think because Kevin Durant wants to leave, I don't think. I think you're going to get a lesser return than what the Jazz got for Rudy Gobert. I think because the relationship's frayed, and he's got a 4-year deal, but the leverage just isn't there. I think that the package is going to be very much let's get guys that can play today around Ben Simmons, and then just you're not going to get that many picks. I don't think it is going to be that big of a hole. So you could probably just do 2 future picks, because do you have all your your futures? Yeah. I think this is going to be quite a small return, but that's my opinion. I'm
kind of thinking that it'll be huge, because the Gobert trade will kind of be in some ways like a basement. That the Nets will be able to say, well, Rudy Gobert just went for this, and this.
Yeah.
Where we've got Kevin fucking Durant, give us a bit more. And obviously it sounds like Phoenix is working on this. It's not just idle speculation. He said I want to go to the Suns because we've done nothing through the first 3 days of free agency except sign guys who are going to be our 10th, 11th and 12th guys.
Can I say, because you've done nothing and you're just sort of waiting to see how this all happens. If someone like Indiana goes up to, or Utah goes up to DeAndre Ayton, and DeAndre Ayton goes, fuck these Suns, they've done nothing for me, and signs an offer sheet, this could all be fucked. You would just be cooked. All of a sudden that asset goes away.
Well, what would the restriction then be? Because would it be a 30-day period where you can't trade him? Or would it be longer than that?
Well, if he signs an offer sheet with this other team...
So we would match.
You would match. Oh, yeah. You wouldn't be able to trade until December 15th.
Yeah, so then we would have to roll into the season with... with the framework of the trade agreed and not be able to process it until December 15th. Or the Nets can pivot and say, turn to someone like Miami. And maybe we can chat a bit about what that deal would look like. Yeah. Is there any way that gets done without Bam going the other way?
Bam can't be in the trade because you can only have one designated rookie extension on the team at once, and Brooklyn have Ben Simmons as that guy on their roster. Yeah. So Bam cannot play with Ben Simmons in any trade. So the deal with Miami would be a Tyler Hero, and maybe Jimmy Butler.
But then Durant.
Durant said if he goes to Miami, it's to play with Jimmy and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
But then who else is on their roster? Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero. You like Omer Yurtseven? See that's what I'm saying.
How do we feel about Strus?
It's not that big of a return. Like, Duncan Robinson would be in there as well.
Yeah, but Duncan Robinson is an asset in flux right now because he's on a $90 million contract and it's unclear whether he'll play ever in the playoffs.
That's just, I don't think the return's going to be that good, because whatever team he goes to, like, he's going to request a trade to a team that's really good right now, and they just don't have the same assets like the Wolves did to get Rudy Gobert. Like, you're not going to a bad team who has good assets because they're a bad team, unless I'll cap that off by saying I don't think this Miami situation is going to work. Unless he goes to Toronto, I think is a really good match. KD hasn't said that he wants to go to Toronto, but a lot of talking heads are saying, man, Toronto would be quite nice because both teams win there. You can send back pretty much any of their starting lineup and both teams are going to be happy. Like, if you get one of the small guards, great. But if you get OG Anunoby, or if you get Pascal Siakam, or if you get Scotty Barnes, if you get one of those guys, that's going to be a better return than you'd get from the Suns or the Heat. And both teams would be better, as in KD would be more in a better spot to win a championship. And then all of a sudden that Brooklyn Nets team built around Ben Simmons has got like a really nice 3-and-D role player right next to him.
And the other thing as well is that I mentioned before, KD has he doesn't have a no trade clause. He's got no leverage. And Joe Varden of The Athletic reported that Joe Tsai, shouts to the big dog, is just fed up and he's over it, which, fucking
so
fair enough.
Fair. This poor guy. We don't really like.
No, we don't need to sympathise with.
We don't need to sympathise with the billionaire, but the poor cunt, like, he's done everything right. That we sit here and we complain about owners not fronting up the bills.
Well, that's he's done everything right. On a macro level, but I fundamentally disagree. Whether the blame is with him or with Sean Marks, they've done everything right. They've made amazing deals. They put the money in whatever, but you're putting the money into these personalities. You're investing not only financially but also like structurally in people like Kyrie Irving and James Harden, which rambled a bit before, but you kind of get what's coming when you do that. Like, the level of commitment to the game and to your body that it takes to maintain your performance level for a guy like Harden clearly hasn't been there. Whatever it is, clearly hasn't been there. And Kyrie, speaks for itself. So, like, Joe Tsai's fronted up and said, here's the money, go do what you have to do. Yeah. And if that's the case, then amazing. And then the blame lies with Sean Marks for thinking that you can kind of like completely circumvent any organizational philosophy and just bring in bad apples and to the point where this fucking guy was talking 1 month ago about, like, I see me and Kevin being like co-owners of the team with Joe, you've clearly just brought in a complete loon, and to some extent handed control of the car over to him.
But even with the Warriors guys, like Steph, Clay, and Draymond, this past off season said that they want to have something to do with all the front office decisions, and they went in there and they, Draymond was in the draft room for this most recent draft, but Steph and Draymond were there saying, hey. They were trying to put the pressure on, saying, sign Avery Bradley, we want him. And the front office has a good enough relationship and a strong enough standing that they said, no, Avery Bradley is not the guy. We want Gary Payton. And then, Draymond said, no, that's wrong. Get our guy, like, you do this for us. And the Warriors didn't budge. They got Gary Payton, and he was essentially one of the reasons why they won a title.
And Avery Bradley looks more washed every season.
Did he finish the season with the team? Like, that's a question. And so, like, I think a little bit of the blame there comes to Sean Marks. But, like,
I think a lot of it, personally. I just think that it's a fatal underestimating of the personality element of team sport.
I think that's just unlucky.
No, I disagree really fundamentally.
Yeah.
Especially because there's such a fucking cache of evidence, particularly about Kyrie, that he's not a leader, that he's not, someone who's going to come in and actually like just do the work. I really fundamentally think that Sean Marks deserves a lot of the blame, because you look at it on paper. Amazing, sick traits. He's parlayed this and this into this and this, and he brought in guys that had 30 All-NBA appearances between them. Sick, well done. What did it get you? Nothing. And
also 30 All NBA appearances includes some DeAndre Jordan ones.
Hey, he was first team 1 year.
So bad.
But what I was trying to get to before is that the Raptors, I think, do probably have the most appealing package. And if Joe Tsai is really just fed up and he just says to Sean Marks, just get the maximum return that you can, just get these blokes out of here.
Yeah.
Ben, like, what can you beat OG and Scotty Barnes, or do you just say like, take 3 of our starting 5, but only one guy who's made an all-star team? So you take like OG and like Gary Trent, and then you take like Siakam or FVV or something like that. No one can really beat the combination of young guys in OG and Scotty Barnes, maybe even Gary Trent, and then like fucking good players who are at least East All-Stars in FVV and Siakam that could pair with Simmons next season to take you back into the playoffs.
2 things there. First one is, if Masai can swing a trade and win another championship, like, that's just incredible, and it sort of speaks a lot to just being consistently good and just being in the conversation with every single star trade, and hopefully he can do that, because that'd be pretty cool. But secondly, I'm actually getting more excited about what the hell this Brooklyn team is going to look like next season. Like,
I'm not. I just can't get excited about a team that's going to be led by Ben Simmons.
I really want to see what it looks like, because it's going to be Ben Simmons, potentially Joe Harris if he actually can still play basketball anymore. Let's say Gary Trent, OG Anunoby. I actually really want to see, because we've seen him do it well, but struggle next to Joel Embiid, and you have to keep Joel Embiid out there, but he's not a great fit for Ben Simmons. I want to see what a team looks like with Ben Simmons surrounded by shooters and defenders. Like, they could be a top 5 defense. You're rolling your eyes because you really don't want to see this. But whatever happens to Kevin Durant, obviously all the eyes are going to be on Kevin Durant's new team and if they can win a title. But I'm like, can this Brooklyn team be a 6 seed? And then maybe it's a bit of like a recoup value for Ben Simmons. But that's a tiny little footnote that we can talk about months from now.
Yeah, I just am struggling to... Ben Simmons has been tarred with the same brush that Kyrie has for me, where I'm just like, out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm struggling to separate the artist from the art. But
all right, well, let's talk about Kyrie Irving, but only briefly, because I actually don't really want to talk about him. The major name that's been linked to him are the Los Angeles Lakers, and this, I don't really want to talk about it because it actually kind of pisses me off that the Lakers have done everything wrong. Kyrie a week ago said, "Hey, Lakers, trade for me," and they had nothing to give apart from Talon Horton-Tucker and a 2027 first-round pick. And he literally could not get it done after trying to create a trade because they just mismanaged their assets so badly. And if the Lakers come out here winners, because all of a sudden Joe Tsai's just like, all right, get rid of it all. I don't care if you take back a year of Westbrook. We're just going to let him walk in free agency. I will be so fuming mad that they made such a big mistake, and it just gets fixed because some dude wants to wear a yellow and purple jersey.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's the one saving grace of being the Lakers, is that dudes do want to wear a yellow and purple jersey. But if they fucked it up this badly once, they can do it again. So if that's the way that it pans out, like, I wouldn't necessarily despair saying, oh, it's worked out for them again, because they'll fuck it up somehow. And also, what did I just say? Teams bringing in Kyrie.
True.
Investing him with authority, investing him with like power within the organization, investing him with like a role on the team. It doesn't work. It fundamentally hasn't worked since 2017. He demanded out because he demanded out of Cleveland because he wanted to be like the guy. Went to try and lead a team, and that's when it all started in Boston. That's when all of the combination of the development of a god complex and being like recalcitrant at the same time, this like strange dichotomy where he thinks he's God's gift, but at the same time he's like, oh, like, now that I'm a bit older, I can look back on my younger experiences and know where I did wrong. And then he says to Boston, I'm definitely coming back. And then, a month later, he's like, get me the fuck out of here. Going missing every single playoff series. Like,
but I also trust LeBron to be like Kyrie.
I don't. Because, I don't know. I don't at all. I think that Kyrie individually is too far gone, and my faith in LeBron to be able to incorporate any variety of player has been shaken the last couple of years as there have been, star players who've come through and not thrive. Now, Westbrook is a maybe an outlier, and Kyrie would definitely be a much better fit in LA, namely because he can fucking shoot and doesn't turn the ball over 8 times a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would hesitate before anointing the Lakers as like a contender if this trade does get swung, because
they did just use their taxpayer MLE on Lonnie Walker.
Is that an overpay for Lonnie Walker? I kind of think it is. I kind of think Lonnie Walker is...
He's a clutch client.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well,
that just finishes it.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to the Rudy Gobert trade?
Yeah.
Okay, so I stole your line.
Yeah. You fully stole it.
The Minnesota Timberwolves have received Rudy Gobert in a trade where they sent out Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Leandro Belmoro, Walker Kessler, recently drafted 22nd in the draft, Jared Vanderbilt, and unprotected first rounders in 2023, 25, 27, and a top 5 protected pick in 2029. Oh, and a pick swap in 26. Who wrote this? That is a lot of crap for Rudy Gobert to be on a team where he plays the exact same position and, you know, is the best case scenario at the exact same position as their best player, Karl Anthony-Towns. What are your first thoughts when you saw this?
I'm just extremely apprehensive about this. Not even from an outlay perspective for the Timberwolves. We'll get into that, I'm sure. Obviously, they've sent a lot of draft capital, which, if this doesn't work, could prove absolutely destructive for the rest of the 2020s.
That's crazy.
But on a pure basketball level, I'm nervous about this.
Yeah.
Not only because Gobert is a center. Yeah. Gobert has played 100% of his minutes as a center over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Towns is a center. He hasn't played the 4, essentially at all.
Since Kevin Garnett.
Since 2016. I went back and had a look at the numbers. So you've got 2 full-time centers. And Towns is not someone who's moving out onto the perimeter and sticking with guards on switches particularly well.
Yeah.
He gets by to some degree because he's really long.
Yeah.
So he's out there and he's able to kind of
he's mobile.
Yeah, but he's not he's not a good defender inside, he's not a good defender outside. The thing that I just find baffling is that during the regular season, I'm sure this will be less of an issue, but in the playoffs in particular, there are going to be games where the last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter, you want to go small with Cat at the 5. And then all of a sudden you're paying $40 million for Rudy Gobert to sit on the bench. For this team, Rudy Gobert is not going to be a 35-minute-a-game player. He's going to be a 30-minute-a-game player.
In the playoffs?
Playoffs, regular season?
Yeah.
You're obviously they'll each be each other's backup at the 5. So they'll stagger it and they'll have 48 minutes of one of them out there.
Yeah.
But those 24 minutes where they're sharing the court together might be bad. I'm sure they will work defensively, but on offense, it's going to be kind of muddy in there. Because I mentioned before that Tim Connolly, the new Timberwolves GM, really just said, I'm not giving up Jaden McDaniels, he's staying.
Yeah.
Despite the Jazz wanting him, they said, we'll give you extra draft capital to compensate for that, but he's not going anywhere. In part because they wanted to avoid what's happened in Utah, where they just had no perimeter defenders, which leads to Gobert just facing...
They still have no perimeter defenders.
Yeah, but they want to make sure that they do have perimeter defenders. Yeah. So they're saying with Jaden McDaniels starting and Anthony Edwards becoming a better perimeter defender, there won't be turnstiles out there that can just get a straight run at Gobert. It will make his life easier. The problem with that then is that all of a sudden you're playing 2 non-shooters. And I get that Kat is probably the second best shooting big of all time with paying proper respects to Dirk.
Did Dirk ever win a 3-point contest? Because that's what matters. The All-Star games.
But Jaden McDaniels last year, along with Jared Vanderbilt, who's been shipped out, they're dunker spot dudes. And Gobert is a dunker spot dude when he's not screening in the action. Yeah. And if he is screening in the action, that means Cat is either at the 3-point line or in the dunker spot. You can't get away with playing 2 non-shooters in today's NBA, and their starting five ostensibly would have 2 non-shooters.
Yeah.
And there are ways to tinker with that. There are ways to fiddle with role players and move around the edges. But the fundamental reality is that their best offensive lineups deep in playoff games probably don't have Rudy Gobert in them. And 40 million... 47 in the last year of his contract is a fucking hell of a lot of money.
That's a player option if he picks it up.
No, the player option is for 51.
True.
Yeah. So
I mean, my tongue was firmly planted in my cheek.
So I didn't see the bulge in your cheek.
Oh,
is that a tongue or you just happened to see me?
So I think this, like, wherever Rudy Gobert goes, they become at the worst a top 10 defense, right? Not the best defense ever, right? But the problem with Rudy Gobert is that when it comes to the playoffs, we saw this was just on display in these most recent playoffs, where you've got bad perimeter defenders, guys get around him, Rudy Gobert has to help get out from under the rim, and all of a sudden Dallas was just kick. Even without Luka, they were just beating him, right? And Rudy looks really stupid because he's having to swing out, and everyone's like, oh, he can't defend the playoffs, but like he's patching holes that were created by everyone else. And like you said, Cat's mobile, whatever, is going to be kind of ugly seeing him like running out in the perimeter. You said Anthony Edwards is going to get better, which let's just wait and see. But
that's the hope.
D'Angelo Russell's still terrible and doesn't try. And like if you just said it, if you're going to have, who's that dude? Jaden McDaniels. He doesn't shoot. And
he can't. He's a career 31% 3-point shooter on 3 attempts a game.
Yeah. So like, I think they will do very well in the regular season. Like they might even sniff 60 wins, which some people say is really important in Minnesota.
60?
Yeah.
Nah.
Really.
Let's try for 50
Karl
first.
Anthony-Towns. I think they will. I think this team's going to be really good in the regular season, and we saw that you can play Twin Towers with Cleveland this most recent season. I was like, no way they're going to be able to do that.
But the problem with playing Twin Towers in Cleveland is that Evan Mobley came in and was immediately an all defensive level player.
Yeah, and can move faster.
And in particular, the area where he excels, he's switching out onto the perimeter and defending in space.
Yeah.
Whereas Evan Mobley, he's like 230 pounds. He's like 7 foot 230. He looks like fucking Bambi on ice out there. But he does it well. He's just rail thin and he's all arms and legs. Towns has a center's body.
I think the euphemism is big boned.
He's a big man, and he's not like Evan Mobley. So you can look at the size of the Cleveland players and say Twin Towers can work, but it's not the size; it's the skill sets.
Yeah.
Allen and Gobert are obviously pretty good analogs for one another because they play largely the same. But Towns and Mobley defensively is like order of magnitudes different. The rest of them, I think, will actually be okay. Like I think they'll be able to cobble together like fine play, provided that Ant Edwards does get better on D and Jaden McDaniels is able to like play that role as like the lock up wing, like he's going to be guarding Kawhi every night. I agree with you that the top 10, just having Gobert there, they'll be a top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10 D.
Yeah.
But then, like, the strength of this team this year was their offense.
Yeah.
That they were so good around Towns.
Yeah.
And Towns being able to do whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted. Obviously, I don't know what his number was, but he would have shot close to 40% this year.
Yeah. From
3, he would have taken about 8 a game. Cool. That'll continue. But he's going to be pushed more and more out. And yeah, he can. If you're switching or defending him with smaller players out in the perimeter because you're like, well, you're not going to come closer into the rim because Gobert's there.
Yeah,
cool. That's fine. But Gobert, if people are switching small defenders onto him, and then saying, "Beat us," it's the old Porzingis treatment.
Yeah.
You can't have a big that can't fucking dribble.
All right, so let's move off of the on-court product and talk about the actual trade, right? And we've seen just the price for superstars has gone up, and trades are crazy. Obviously, we talked about Paul George, and that was also sort of to get Kawhi Leonard, and they gave up Shai Gilgeous and then future Clippers picks. You've got Milwaukee going all in on Drew Holiday, who isn't a superstar like those other guys, but pushed them over the line, and they needed to do that. Anthony Davis, and so on and so forth, right? Every single time those trades were made that gave up at least 4 future first round picks, they all turned into title contenders overnight, and I was like, okay, that's so expensive. But the Clippers are title contenders. That's so expensive, and then the Bucks win a title, obviously with LA. This is more, and I think it's more in terms of quantity, but not quality, because Anthony Davis was traded for like Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, who could be superstars.
The pick that became
and the fourth pick, and that was traded once it had already become the fourth pick. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
That's an interesting one though, because they would have given up if the Clippers had been able to see 2 years into the future at how good SGA actually would become, they would have probably given up 3 less picks.
Yeah.
3 less first rounders, because at the time SGA was like, we'll give you our best young player.
Yeah.
Not like we'll give you a future all-star.
Yeah.
So that trade looked even better for OKC in retrospect.
Yeah. But going back to this one, like those teams gave up like a significant asset. If this team is going to be as good in the regular season as I think they will be, these unprotected Wolves picks are going to be 20 and below, right? These should be middling first round picks. It hurts that you don't have picks to trade.
Maybe not though, because 23, sure, 25, sure, 26, 27, 29, those are far away. There's every chance that this could go poorly in the next 3 years, and by the time it hits 26, 27, that this is a bad team.
But it's not a lock. It's not like you're getting the fourth pick, and it's not like you're getting Brandon Ingram, right?
but you're just taking a punt.
Either way, right? They're still giving up these assets that aren't a lock to be incredible, like some other deals we've seen, right?
Yeah.
But they're not a title contender overnight. Like, this is a team to sort of push them into the elite. Hopefully they become a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
And we have never seen that before. Every single one of these deals where a GM pushes all of their chips into the table, they become a title contender overnight. I don't think this team's ever going to win a championship, and I don't think they're going to compete with the best teams in the West.
And the important thing with that line of questioning is that not only have they pushed all of their chips in to take them up to where we think they're going to be a solid contending playoff team, like a top 4 seed. They now have nothing left. They have nothing left. They can't trade any picks. They'll be able to do swaps in the off years, so they'll be able to do 24 and 28 swaps, which is worth nothing, essentially nothing. And then the only other way that any of their valuable assets will be tradable is if things go bad.
Yeah.
So Anthony Edwards would have a tremendous amount of trade value around the league, but he's not going anywhere. Neither is Towns, unless things go fucking catastrophically bad. And D'Angelo Russell is coming into a contract year, and he's one of the...
He's got so much leverage now.
Yeah, well, he's also really difficult to price, right? Because I think maybe I'm imagining it, but I think I saw a report pop up. You know this, but the listeners don't. I've recently re-downloaded Bleacher Report. Which, fuck me, I didn't miss it, but also during free agency it has been a godsend. I think I saw a report floating around that then the negotiations from Russell's agent is going to start at the max.
Yeah.
Okay, sick. Well, the minute that he signs a 30 million or more annual value contract, he immediately becomes a negative asset.
Yeah.
Unless he just averages 22 and 8 this year.
Yeah.
And he becomes a top 10 point guard again.
Yeah.
Which... Okay.
Well, also,
cool.
You also have to factor in the fact that him and Anthony Edwards are going to be driving into a more congested paint as well. So that's even less likely.
So that's the team. That's the assets. That's it. Everyone else is going to be rookie contracts and minimums. And the fucking rookie contracts maybe not because they don't have any picks. And they traded away Leandro Bolmaro,
who should have value, but he doesn't look very good when he plays basketball.
Well, he was a first round pick from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Walker Kessler, who was their first round pick from this year. So not only did they trade away 4 picks, 1 swap, but they've also traded their most recent picks. So they really gave up 6 first round picks. To say nothing of...
To not push him into title contention.
Would not push him in title contention, but also, just to jump back to the on-court product, to say nothing of losing Pat Bev, who was an integral part of their playoff push. Malik Beasley is like a good NBA player who would fucking be able to really fill a role on a team like this.
And he was on the trading block literally the second after he signed in Minnesota, though.
Yeah. But this is the team, and the fundamental reality is that you have two blokes who are mutually incompatible. Not all the time, not even most of the time, but I guarantee you there will be games in next playoffs, assuming that the Wolves make it, in playoff series where they're playing against someone in the West, Dallas, Phoenix, the Clippers, that have gone small, and they're spreading you out, and you have to respond in kind, and you have to make a decision. Are we investing the power in Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell to run every pick and roll with Gobert? Or are we benching Gobert and putting Towns in there and going 5 out? And one of your $40 million players is going to be on the bench. And ask anyone ever who's ever had a $40 million player on the bench in high leverage playoff situations. Doesn't go well.
But you don't get it. They just traded 5.5 picks for this guy. Surely that's his value, and you can just turn around and trade him for 5 picks next year.
Yeah.
Just get it right back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the GM side of things. Tim Connolly has obviously just taken over this role. He was, the much fought after and very, very expensive signing by the front office, who are, here, they're serious, they want to be committed to winning. This is Tim Connolly's first move. Few stories here from the Denver point of view. When Tim Connolly first came and was the first lead decision maker after Masai Ujiri left to make more money elsewhere, Tim Connolly came in, and just as Calvin Booth has done after he came in this offseason, the Kroenke said, hey, you just started, we're going to want to pinch a couple of pennies. And Tim Connolly sold the last ever first round pick. He sold the 27th draft pick in the 20-something draft for $3.5 million. That draft pick ended up being Rudy Gobert. So everyone's like, oh my God, they sold a pick, turned out to be a defensive player of the year, and you could have had him on your team. This is before Jokic.
3-time defensive player of the year and 6-time all defensive team.
That was
defensive first team.
That was the last first round pick to be sold. So now Tim Connolly gets his guy back. That was sort of a mistake, but sort of pushed on him by the Kroenkes. And Tim Connolly traded away Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley when their rookie contracts were finishing because he didn't want to pay them because he didn't think they were going to be worth whatever their next deal is. He traded them to Minnesota. Obviously, he took the Minnesota job. He's now got these contracts that he didn't want to pay. First move he does is get rid of those guys that he didn't want to pay and have on their deals.
Vando's good, though.
Vando's good. Malik Beasley's a little bit overpaid.
Yeah, but Malik Beasley is like he's not as good as Jordan Clarkson, but he's that kind of player where he fits on 26 teams.
Yeah.
And his role can be as big or as little as it needs to be. If you give him 20 minutes a game and you say, Matt, just go and get us 11 points and shoot 48% from the field and, shoot well from third, he'll do it.
Yeah. A couple of interesting little stories from the Denver side of things.
It's also interesting that he's gone for Gobert after having so many years with Jokic, and I don't think any player in the league has victimized Gobert quite as much as Jokic, quite as regularly. Yeah. Division rivals playing each other 4 times a year.
Can you do the voice?
What?
Brother, I've got 41 points.
Bro, you've done it justice there. Yeah. Brother, I have 41 points. Interesting, because you would think that he has a very good understanding of Gobert's particular weaknesses. And maybe he says his particular weakness is 280-pound Serbians. And there's only one of those guys in the league who's really going to do any damage.
Well, Jovic is in Miami now, so...
Yeah. But I just find that interesting that his guy, Jokic, who he drafted him and discovered him and made the moves that propelled him to superstardom, he's now gone and got the guy who his former guy just victimized relentlessly.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's neither here nor there, but it is kind of funny, I think.
All right, and then another side on the GM things. Danny Ainge, so good at selling fucking high. Like, obviously, he did the Brooklyn trade with the KJ Paul Pierce. I'm sure there's other things. And then now he's just traded away Rudy Gobert, who I don't think he's worth the same haul that, an Anthony Davis level haul. And he has just traded away for more in terms of just quantity. Like that, I don't know who Tim Connolly thought he was outbidding. You obviously had the point about Jaden McDaniels, and obviously chucking the pick instead of McDaniels. But like, who's Tim Connolly outbidding here? Even if you don't want to include Jaden McDaniels, isn't it 2 first-round picks and matching salary? Like, what? Who else did Danny Ainge have on the phone? He goes, oh no, they've just offered me 3. Tim, I need more. Oh, they've just offered me 4. Tim, I need more.
Well, there were rumours that Chicago was in for Gobert about a week ago, and that would be a relatively interesting deal because they could just throw Vooch in as the salary, essentially just match the salary there with like a little tinkering around the edges, and then they've got Patrick Williams. You can throw Kobe White in there, like, you know, whatever picks they have left that they didn't trade for Vooch. Like, you could get there. You could get a reasonable offer, and that's a team where if Gobert went there, like, that'd be pretty cool. The Mavs as well were linked with Gobert. That seemed to be put to bed when Christian Wood went there.
Well,
but they
get this. Can I just say they're going to play Chris Wood at the 4 and JaVale McGee at the 5. That's their starting lineup.
Well. Yeah,
you might have problems with Cat and Gobert, but I'd rather that than Chris Wood. And
the Chris Wood deal. I still just am not. I'm still just not a fan of. I actually am a fan of the McGee contract. Like giving McGee the taxpayer MLE. Like obviously it's for 3 years, but he's like,
he's good. He's good.
He's like, just like a good offensive player. And he's exactly the type of centre that Luka needs to play with. Or at least just to have in the centre rotation.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Danny Ainge, getting the hustle on.
The king of the Mormons, Danny Ainge. So I don't know that there were maybe teams on the phone like the day of that he's playing the Timberwolves off against. But you also don't get the sense that Tim Connolly is a GM who would be played off against. You know, like he's not like... Danny Ainge isn't calling back and saying, well, actually, I've got an extra first-round pick from this team. Like, you have to throw in 2 more. And Tim Connolly's going like, oh, I better do it. I guess I better do it.
Yeah, it's not his first job.
Yeah, he's a veteran, probably one of the 5 or 6 best GMs in the league. Like, he's not just getting fucking slow played by Danny Ainge.
Yeah. But he did.
Well, it makes you think that he's paid what he thought was fair valuation.
But even if you think that's fair valuation, the market doesn't see 5 picks as fair for Rudy Gobert.
Well,
I don't know who else has got 5 picks to give for Rudy Gobert.
There are a lot of teams that have 5 picks, just none of them want Rudy Gobert.
I think he's overpaid here, which is
he definitely has overpaid here, because even a couple of months ago when there was speculation about the end of the Jazz, like this is what's happening. They're going to be split up. There were, trades being proposed that were more like matching salary and 2 picks. 2 picks, 2 swaps. Something like that. This is above and beyond what was possible. And I think it's an interesting thing to ponder as we look more at the Jazz themselves. Have they got this haul for their second most valuable player?
Yeah.
Is Donovan Mitchell... in a vacuum more valuable than Rudy Gobert? And if that's the case, what does that mean for potential Mitchell negotiations now or down the line? Like,
Can I ask Buddy, just before we talk about the Jazz side of things, what's your prediction for the Wolves next year as it sits today?
I think 4 sounds good.
55 wins.
Yeah, mid-50s. I think 60 is crazy.
Can you see them being a conference finalist in the same conference as Steph Curry and Kevin Durant soon?
No, I can't because the Nuggets will be there, and I think the Nuggets will be a better team, and maybe the Lakers, the Clippers. Like, there are 6 fucking good teams, to say nothing of the Mavs, who were literally the conference finalist.
Yeah. And the Kings are going to make a push this year.
Yeah. Hey, well, Keegan Murray, 28 points today. I think low to mid 50s and maybe a 4 seed and a second round exit sounds right to me.
You might have said that was the ceiling if they hadn't made this move.
Yeah.
Mid 50s, 4 seed.
I definitely would have said lower, actually, for the ceiling.
Okay.
I would definitely have said low 50s for the ceiling if they hadn't. So they've bumped the ceiling up by like 3 wins. So to that we say well done.
All right, so on the Jazz side of things, just to pick up where you were talking, there's a report from Andy Larson of the Salt Lake Tribune that said that the Jazz are keeping their options open with Donovan Mitchell after the Rudy Gobert trade. They said they're either going to look at doing sort of a Damian Lillard thing where they keep Donovan Mitchell and then they retool around him, or they just trade him and then just go full blow it up, tank, draft Trey Burke and Dante Exum and see if you can build slowly through the draft like that. What would you do here if you're Danny Ainge?
I would trade Mitchell because I think there's a bank of evidence that suggests that Mitchell with another All-NBA player wasn't enough to get you out of the second round. Mitchell on his own certainly isn't enough to get you out of the second round. They traded Royce O'Neal for a first round pick to Brooklyn, which is another sign that they may be looking at stripping things back. Because if you really want to
sound like Brian Windhorst.
Yeah, get me all over Twitter with that one image of me. That's another indication that they're looking at stripping things back. And if you were looking to do a quick retool, Royce O'Neal is the kind of player that you would keep around because he's proven to be a starting level player for you. It's been noted in NBA circles that Mitchell might want to go to New York and that there might be mutual interest there. I would just fucking pick up the phone if I was Danny Ainge. Try and get into New York for a package that includes RJ Barrett and picks, and throw in young player X or whatever, RJ Barrett and
Emmanuel Quickly.
Yeah, RJ Barrett,
Quentin Grimes.
So yeah,
Jericho Sims. Your favorite.
Any of these end of the first round young players
Miles McBride.
love the McBride.
Obadiah Toppin.
Yeah, well, I said end of the first round pick. I didn't say top 10. Because I think New York would do that. If you could say Brunson, Mitchell, and Randall, and let's go. They're all kind of locked up. Let's do that. Mitchell is a New York type of player, old school kind of shooting guard game, flair, marketability. He would do well on and off the court in New York, and take a swing on RJ Barrett, give him the team for a year or two, and say, let's see what you can do. And
worst case, you get Victor Wembanyama.
Take the picks and do an OKC but much faster. Take the picks and try and, instead of doing everything over 5 or 6 years, do it over 2 or 3 years, and you could be back. Which incidentally is exactly what he did in Boston. All those years ago, before he traded for KG and Ray Allen, was he took over a team and he stripped everything down except Paul Pierce, and then they were shit for a couple of years. Drafted the guys that they eventually traded for the superstars, and then bam. If you get rid of Mitchell and you bring someone like Barrett in, or another young player that you think is good, we talked about the Raptors before, you bring in an Anunoby or a Scotty Barnes, someone like that, a good young player, and then you just figure the rest out. He's proven to be able to do that twice over, he's done it in 2 different decades. So,
I think if you're going to trade Donovan Mitchell, and let's say, if Rudy Gobert came back 150% of what his value is, let's say you get 75% of what Donovan Mitchell's value is, 2 first-round picks and a player, right? Which I think would be less than what he might be worth.
Yes.
All of a sudden, Utah, who own all their first-round picks apart from 2024, which is owed to OKC, but it's top 10 protected.
Surely their picks out for the Conley trade.
I think those obligations are done. Okay. But so if you're Utah, you've got all your first round picks. If you are going to tank, you're just going to keep that 2024 pick. You got you've got Minnesota's future in your hands. You're going to get 2 picks for Donovan Mitchell. All of a sudden, Utah is up there with the Pelicans and the Thunder as a team with just heaps and heaps of future assets. That's just could be one of the next incredible young talents and young cores, and you draft Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey and stuff. So Utah could quickly go from holy crap, how do they retool around these 2 guys who might not be good enough to do anything, to you might be one of the 3 best, most prepared teams in the world.
Well, and I don't get the sense from either Utah's perspective or Danny Ainge himself that they would actually do that. They would get the assets, and like I said before, they'd turn it around quickly. It would be assets to stockpile for a trade. It wouldn't be an OKC get the guys in there, draft and grow. It would very much be, we're going to get all these assets, and then all of a sudden, bam, we're in for something. That's what happened the first time in Boston. The second time they used those picks from that huge trade to trade away. They used those picks
to draft the Jays.
Marcus Smart as well. But Utah is not a team I think that necessarily wants to, or a franchise that wants to take a back seat for 3 or 4 years, particularly after having had rampant success generally for the last 12 or so years. Going back to the Darren Williams teams, to Gordon Hayward teams, to then the Donovan Mitchell teams. Like, they've been a playoff team most seasons. So I don't know that they would want to necessarily take a step back if that wasn't, if that was an option that they could not. Then I think that they would maybe look at doing that on an organisational level.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity here to be one of those young teams that are slowly building through the draft. But yeah, you might be right. It's not Danny Ainge's MO. It might have been Justin Zanuck's MO, but it's not Danny Ainge's.
King of the Mormons.
Should we take a quick break before moving on to... this is going to be the fourth most important thing, and it's a Dejounte Murray trade to Atlanta, which is pretty sick, but we'll take a quick break.
The depth... The deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the... Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the four-man weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the pack of basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Alright.
We're good. We're rolling.
Oh, we're rolling. Action. In other news, the Atlanta Hawks have traded for Dejounte Murray with the San Antonio Spurs. The Hawks get... I love it when you see these big layouts where it goes, what do the Hawks get? They get one player. And the San Antonio Spurs got Danilo Gallinari, who then cleared waivers and has signed with Boston for the taxpayer mid-level exception, 2 for 13, per Davide Quinoletto at Gazzetta. Yeah.
Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, whatever. And the Spurs also got a 2023 first-round pick from Charlotte. This is the one that went back in the Cam Reddish deal, so I believe it's top 14 protected, or top 12. They got unprotected 2025 and 27 picks from Atlanta and swap rights in 2026. So quite a big haul for Dejounte Murray, who... he's like 26, 27, in his prime, just made his first All-Star game.
He's 25.
Okay, it just made his first All-Star game as an injury replacement, but, All-Star banners fly forever.
He's one of the cases where, he potentially deserved to be in...
Sure.
He's not like an injury replacement in the East where it's like, okay, let's just find a good starter. He averaged 20 and 10.
Yeah,
boards,
and 2 steals.
Played well.
Yeah. Okay, so I fucking love this trade for the Atlanta Hawks. I think this trade is incredible because when Trae Young is on the court, Atlanta have been one of the best teams in the whole entire world, and when he sits, they're like worse than OKC. So, you can look at getting it back up, which is something I've tried to do and just haven't been able to complete. But now...
Well, Rondo didn't work.
And now they've got 2 all-star point guards who can run an offense at a high level. One of them's a great defender, and one of them is the complete opposite of that. And you can just stagger them, and hopefully they do. I hope we don't get some stupid situation with Nate McMillan, but you can stagger them and have excellent point guard play for 48 minutes a game. It's going to be great. They fit well on the defensive end. They fit well on the offensive end. And we also get to see potentially Trae Young doing a little bit of Steph Curry running off the ball for the first time in a long time, because it has very much been, okay, Trae Young, pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, and then it's like there has to be shooters around and they have to actually hit shots. Now it's like Dejounte can run everything while Trae is just like, exploring the studio space, running some floppy actions along the baseline. And I'm so excited to see what this team looks like, especially if they trade away John Collins for a better fit and maybe a better shooter at the big spot, just with one big man and Clint Capella rolling to the rim. I love this trade. Do you love it as much as me?
I like it, but I actually have qualms about the fit.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, the things that you said are all true. Trey's the worst defender in the whole fucking league. So how do you cover that? You get a guy who can take his matchup and do it at a fucking elite level. Amazing. You get a guy who is really good with the ball in his hands and who actually was reading a stat Dejounte Murray ranked 6th for possession time in the NBA last season. So he, much like Trae Young, has the ball a lot. So when Trae is on the bench, he's a guy who will have the ball, run the offense, and do it really well. Amazing. The problem is, you mentioned Trae as a Steph Curry type operator. Cool. The only players who ever do that are like Patty Mills and Seth Currys of the world, who had to absolutely scrap and fight their way to get into the league and get in however they could, knowing that they weren't going to have the ball in their hands. And Steph Curry, who I think is, rather than a blueprint, an anomaly.
Yep.
Someone who has not only the skill set but the temperament and the desire to play that way. I have a sneaky that Trae Young is more from the James Harden school of thought, and that once he has gotten a taste of being, I hate this phrase because it's the most overused phrase in basketball, being the center point of a heliocentric offense. I'm going to go and slap myself after the podcast for even saying heliocentric, but nonetheless, I don't think that Trae is going to want to do that. Really. I don't think that Trae is going to say, I'm going to take the ball, I'm going to get 20 less touches a game, and I'm going to take all my shots when I'm running around screens or spot-ups, partly because it's harder in a lot of ways. Like, to use him as Steph Curry, you have to run, and you have to fucking work. And you're going to be taking threes from spots that aren't your... you're going to be taking shots there. You're going to be taking threes from places that's not your spot. Like, you've developed through having the ball in your hands this real repertoire of above the break, off the dribble 3-point shooting, and now all of a sudden you're going to be just taking them from the corners. Like, star players don't kind of alter their games like that very often, and when they do, I think it's an anomaly. And then the other thing is, if that logic holds, and that actually is the case, that whether through Nate McMillan playing Stone Age basketball or Trae not wanting to do it, they don't play Trae off the ball a lot. Dejounte Murray is a career 32% 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And what's more, he actually doesn't shoot. He shoots 2 threes a game.
Yeah.
So he's not someone who can thrive off the ball with Trae. And if they're going to be playing 20 minutes a game together, I think there's real potential for him to be marginalised. Next to Trae, specifically because, like I mentioned before, he holds the ball and he runs the offense. And, their skill sets are complementary in the sense that... oh my god, we're watching 2 magpies brawl out the window. Right. Their skill sets are complementary in that one does something bad and the other one does it well, but you kind of need to have overlapping skill sets in some ways. And I think that could end up being an issue.
I'm hopeful that Trae's going to see that this ball handler has come onto his team, and that last year they didn't make the playoffs really. Like, they made the play-in and then won some games. I hope that Trae sees
why, bro? Because once you've made the conference finals, just regular season games just don't have the same pool.
Oh, that's aged just poorly
like
and poorly
milk.
Every day.
Like milk.
Okay, well, cool.
The other thing, just to have the floor again, and I wonder what you think about this, is that you don't often see guard-heavy lineups or guard-heavy teams where the star power and the financial commitment is invested in the backcourt actually do heaps in playoffs in general. The Golden State Warriors early editions stand out as like a notable exception, but again, I would say that Steph Curry is like the anomaly, not the blueprint. And then the 3 through 5 is kind of not that good for this team because there's no one in any of those spots currently who is like a shot creator for themselves. They're all to a certain extent spoon-fed. Obviously, Capella and Okongwu will be there this season, and probably just Okongwu from the season after, but they are the quintessential dump-off, rim-roll, lob kind of operators. John Collins has not really developed either a back-to-the-basket or a face-up game to take people off the dribble. And DeAndre Hunter, whilst he can do some of that stuff, he's not someone on the wing that you're saying, give him the ball late in the shot clock and saying, go and get a shot. So you kind of need those players. Like, every team that makes a deep run has a big wing-sized player who can do that. Or, in the case of like Denver, like fucking center-sized player who can do that because it's easier to defend smaller players, just fundamentally. So having someone who can combine those skills in a bigger body, I think, is really important. And I would be skeptical that it appears that they're going to trade John Collins. I'd be skeptical that they can get a player like that back in return for John Collins. So I think they're kind of like overbalancing to one direction.
Okay, I'll sort of reserve the right to judge this team fully until they've traded away John Collins. But if they don't, and this is the team for next year, I agree with you. Like, while I do like the fit in the backcourt, I just want to wait and see, because having two traditional bigs, DeAndre Hunter, who is a fine shooter, but he's not changing, he's not moving the needle for you on offense. With the two guards, I like it, but I don't love it. But let's talk about the Spurs side of things. Spurs fully committed to the tank. Obviously got heaps of picks here. Now this is sort of the going rate for a guy who is an all-star, but they sold very high here. Are the Spurs the worst team in the league? Like, when you look at who they're going to be playing, Trey Jones is probably the starting point guard. Devin Vassell is going to take about 30 shots. Josh Primo just had his 18th birthday last year. Who's the guy they drafted?
This year.
Yeah, the Polish dude.
I don't even know.
His name escapes me. Marco
Jeremy Sochan.
Yeah.
The most Polish guy ever. They might be. They might actually be. I mean, we'll see what OKC says about that.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait till there's some hip flexor strain on all three of their best players.
Yeah. I think they might be. My biggest question from the Spurs is, like, what is Pop doing there?
Yeah,
still.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta go, bro. You're not gonna be coaching in 4 years to see the rebuild through. So what's the point in starting?
Yeah. Well, I think he just likes doing his job.
Yeah,
hanging out around.
Well, Brett Brown just signed an extension, a deal to become the assistant coach in San Antonio under Pop. So you have to imagine that there's potentially like a succession plan. Conversation going on there.
Talking to a friend of the program, Jackson, who's a Spurs fan, he's very excited to see that both Kenny Atkinson and Quinn Snyder are available to replace Pop when that eventually happens, and James Borrego for people who are fans of him out there. So it looks like they've got the options of having two very good coaches. Like, I think they would be over the moon to have Quinn Snyder.
Moon? We were over the moon.
And Kenny Atkinson to replace Pop. But Brett Brown, I do not think is as good as those guys. He might have just come on as like a tanking consultant.
Yeah, but also that's pretty rogue. He's also, though, and not to say that Quinn Snyder and Kenny Atkinson aren't, but Brett Brown is a culture guy. And the Spurs, the number one thing that I think, more than like basketball, more than coaching, more than GM, more than like front office moves that has united them over the last like 25 years, has been culture. Because since Tim Duncan and Pop came in, there has been complete alignment from every facet of the organization about culture. You will not see the Spurs under the management of Pop and R.C. Buford with the leadership players that they have bringing in someone like Kyrie. It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
And that stability and that like organizational ethos has been as large a part of their success and of their continued sustained success. Like, obviously from season to season, it's more important to have great players than a great culture, because Tim Duncan and Tony Parker are the ones winning you the chip, not the fucking culture. But to sustain the success, the culture is absolutely important, because players will change and age and move on, but the culture stays. And I think Brett Brown is that is him. He came up with Pop, obviously, and what he managed to do in Philly, instilling that culture in that team through the worst losing period in professional sports history in America, creating that culture, and then leading them, obviously has his shortcomings as a coach itself, but then leading them from that era to playoff success and to like actual contention.
But why don't you just get both and get Kenny Atkinson?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point, but
I really hope the Spurs, like, Marco laughed at me when I said this, but there has to be some point of basketball karma here. Like, the Spurs have done everything right, model organisation, etc. They have to be rewarded with a very good player and a very good pick. It would be unfair. Like, the fucking Cavs got like 1 million number one picks, and so did the Wolves. Like, please just if the lottery is rigged, just rig it for the Spurs for 1 year.
Yeah.
They deserve it.
You don't rig it for small markets though.
True.
The Lakers getting every number 2 pick.
And the number 4 pick where they jumped up from like 12. Yeah. Let's move on to the Golden State Warriors, my team, who lost Otto Porter Jr., who signed with fucking Toronto.
Did we find out the numbers on that one?
I think
2 years, but at what? I haven't seen
I think it's the
numbers.
minimum. The fact that they didn't bring it out. I think I heard someone say it must be the minimum.
Surely it was 2 years with a player option for the second. Surely he just stay.
Yeah.
Surely he just...
Also, behind Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Thaddeus
the
Young.
most wing heavy.
Thaddeus Young, who re-signed. And he's playing the 4. Like, and they got, who's the tall, skinny dude who can shoot? Trebuchet.
That's just quietly. They gave him 37 million over 3 years. That's insane.
He's like 30, isn't he?
Yeah, but even so, he didn't play last year. Like, they were playing Thad Young and Ken Birch over him, and all of a sudden you're bringing him back on 12 mil a year. Like, that's a lot of money for... I mean, maybe they're just looking at him as like salary ballast, but...
Yeah, maybe it's like giving Duncan Robinson a lot of money and now he's in every trade discussion.
Yeah.
But, Otto Porter Jr. Toronto is so fucking boring.
Yeah.
Lost Damian Lee to the Phoenix Suns. I wish you the best of luck. Is he related to anyone on Phoenix's roster?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, God.
I think he's actually Chris Paul's cousin.
Chris Paul's dad. Lost Nemanja Bjelica, who mic drop moment, won a title, had lockjaw on a photo with Klay Thompson, and then just went he's gone to Turkey.
Fenerbahce.
Yeah, nice. Good on him. And then obviously the big one is losing Gary Payton II to the Portland Trailblazers.
On a rich deal.
Congratulations, Gary. Get said bag. We re-signed Kevon Looney for, I think it was 3 for 25.5, which is the cost of winning a title.
Yep.
Kind of crazy that like we weren't sure if he was going to be like on the team 2 years ago because he was just so injury riddled, and last year played every single game and played every single playoff game, won a title and was excellent. And I was like, damn, kind of an unsuccessful offseason now. Like, the draft went well, we've re-signed Kevon Looney, and then we signed Dante DiVincenzo, who the Kings let go, which I thought was just stupid, but the Kings traded for him and then didn't give him his qualifying offer because he was pissed off as well.
They traded for him after trying to trade for him last offseason.
Yeah.
They traded for him at the deadline, and they tried to bring him over from Milwaukee previously, and then they didn't. After all of that, they finally get him, and then they keep him around for 2 months and don't extend him. Yeah,
and like they replaced the white shooting guard themselves with Kevin Huerter, which we'll talk about in a second, but like... It was just kind of weird that they, obviously you've talked about how much they wanted to get him, but then they pissed him off because it seemed like it was coming from management to keep him on the bench so he wouldn't meet the starter criteria, so he would have a smaller cap hold, so then his qualifying offer would be smaller, or maybe he couldn't have re-signed for as much. And then sort of out of the goodness of his heart, Monty McNair goes, okay, I'll just take back a qualifying offer, you can just be a free agent. So we signed him with the taxpayer MLE, which is good because, like, yes, Gary Payton too, we don't win a title without him last year.
Yeah.
And honestly, we might not win a title next season without
him. And just quietly, it wasn't even the full taxpayer MLE, so you have a little bit left over that you can bump in towards maybe being the more appealing destination for another veteran minimum signing. That you just say, well, the Lakers can only give you 2.5, but we'll give you 3.7.
And
yes. You know what I know? I don't know much, but I know money talks.
So you're kind of like...
I don't mind that. I like
Dante.
That. Yeah, I like
that. Dude, like obviously he was very injured when the Bucks won the title, but then like just couldn't get into a rhythm when he came back, and then people were there taking his job, Grayson Allen and Pat Cotton on. So it's a very, very good buy low. Obviously he's got a player option in the second year, so if all things go well, which we assume it is going to go well, he's a shooter for the Warriors that can defend. He's going to be incredible.
He's also really zippy as well. I kind of get like, now that he's on the Warriors, I'm kind of getting like Leandro Barbosa vibes.
Yeah.
That kind of like just like hard defender, like runs the floor, shoots threes. Not bad.
Leandro Barbosa this morning signed with the Kings as an assistant coach.
They swap places.
So yeah, I quite like the signing. again, sucks to lose Gary Payton, but obviously we couldn't afford that. I think it was going to cost us like $70 million to match his money in just tax bills. But then again, we also make billions of dollars because Golden State privately funded their arena instead of asking the state to give them any money.
Which is how it should be.
Which is how it should be. And one of the benefits for paying for your own fucking stadium is that you get
all
all
the
the
money.
revenue.
Yeah.
And if your team's good, which they've put in money to be a good team, they're going to sell a lot of tickets. There's also like 50 Rihanna concerts there and Drake concerts and shit. So,
an industry unto itself.
Yeah. Dante DiVincenzo, it's a good silver lining.
Who's out there to replace Lee, OPJ, and Payton?
Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody.
No, but obviously you have to bring in vets.
Oh, that wasn't a question.
No,
that was a full stop at the end of that.
No, it was a question.
Oh, it was a question.
Who else? Who are the other? Who are the OPJ and the Payton of this year? Guys that are just there to replace.
Dante, Moody, and Kuminga. I'm struggling. Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I am. And by out there, I don't mean on the Warriors roster. I mean, who's left?
True.
Who's going to sign for $3 million to come and play for Golden State?
Probably Miles Bridges.
Nah, that's a nah. We're not talking about him.
So yeah, you're right. It's like, how the fuck do you replace Gary Payton, who is a shooting guard center?
I don't even mean it from a perspective of like.
Such a
niche.
niche.
I fully do expect that Kuminga and Moody will take on like much larger roles next season. But like obviously these roster spots will be replaced, and they will likely be replaced with established veterans.
Okay,
so I'm just wondering, who are the guys that are going to bring in and asking you if there are any like Warriors-esque players who might come and ring chase.
Yeah. Okay. Phew, we got there in the end.
Yeah,
I've got no idea. Let's go on the old spot track free agent tracker. Who needs a ring? Man, it's faster typing on a keyboard than an iPad, isn't it?
Just slightly. JTA coming back, do you think?
No, he's gone to the Lakers.
Oh, he's gone to the Lakers.
Yeah.
Oh, good on him.
I'm actually surprised he's still in the NBA.
Good on him.
Available update, sort by age. Andre Iguodala is apparently he's like 50-50 at the moment whether he's going to come back or not.
There's actually like a few good players that are just like out there.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Udonis Haslem on day one of free agency, Miami went there with the full front office, laid the rings on the table, and pitched to him to come back.
That's so fucking funny. That's nice.
Dude, I'm pissed off. That's so cringe.
Nah, it's showing them that he's valuable to him.
Showing
him that he's valuable to them.
All right, here's a few old people that might want to win a ring. Paul Millsap.
Oh, it's off to a bad start.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
dude.
Very, very, very serious.
Very Warriors-y.
What about like a Jeremy Lamb?
Oh, you're talking actually play basketball. I'm talking sit on the bench.
No, I'm talking like fucking. You just We're crossing wires here.
Are we recording for 2 hours today?
you just lost players who played a role. You're gonna need players who can play a role to come back in.
Oh, also we drafted 2 rookies.
Yeah, fucking.
And they're taking roster spots.
Yeah.
Dewey Santos.
Yeah.
Nah, he's a potential two-way guy. Chris Trizzo might be elevated to a roster spot, and Quindary Weatherspoon.
Okay.
But in terms of old people who want to ring, Paul Millsap, Marcus Aldridge, Ed Davis, Blake Griffin, Sam Whiteside, Serge Ibaka, Markieff Morris, because he now plays with Nikola Jovic, so he's too scared to go back there.
Yeah.
Campazzo, Tony Snell.
Yeah, Deep 2 legend, Tony Snell.
Yeah, kind of grim.
All right, well, should we cap that and move on to Boston swinging an absolutely outrageous trade for Malcolm Brogdon?
Tell us what happened there.
I'm about to sneeze, so maybe you should do it.
Okay, bless you. Man, so happy I'm editing this.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Boston have traded Daniel Tice, Aaron Naismith, and a 2023 first. Well, who's the salary fit? Oh, Malik Fitz.
No, it was Stauskas and one other guy.
Stauskas got traded?
Yeah, some other guy.
Malik Fitz.
Yeah, done.
For Malcolm Brogdon. This is... I feel like every other team in the playoffs could have outbid for Malcolm Brogdon if this was the price.
100%. 100%.
Like, Boston might be the 1 seed in the East, right? So that could be the 30th pick. And it's probably a pretty safe bet that they might have the best record in the league next season. And they addressed all of their issues with one move. How good's this? And I think he's like 30, but still.
Yeah, he got 1 year left, like low 20s, 22.5.
He wasn't allowed to be traded last.
I think he signed a 2 for 45 last offseason,
okay.
which meant that he couldn't be traded for a year.
Because it was an extension on top of his contract.
Yeah, so
maybe he's got 2 years left because if it was an extension.
Yeah, so he'd have 2 years then at 22.5 left. Their guard rotation is all of a sudden is Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Derek White, and then fucking Jaylen Brown can easily play the 2.
It's so good.
What the fuck? That's incredible. Hayden Pritchard was playing for an NBA finalist.
Is he still there?
In the finals, and he's gonna not even feature. He's still there, but Peyton Pritchard is a good regular season player.
He surprised me with his defense.
He's now their 4th guard.
Yeah.
And then if you play 2 of those 3 main guards together, then you're just fucking bumping the Jays up to the 3 and the 4 respectively, and then your center rotation is Rob Will and Al Horford. That's pretty fucking good. That's pretty fucking good.
Brad Stevens showing that he's actually good at this fucking job.
Yeah. One thing that he's not good at is acting, because he was, I think, the worst NBA personality performance in Hustle.
Oh, he was in Hustle.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was really. I thought for the most part, everyone in Hustle was really good, but of the NBA players.
Okay.
Like, in terms of acting and not being like fucking...
No, actually, Cole Larry is really bad. He's just like...
Well, Brad Stevens, I think,
was
was the worst.
What's going on, Adam Silver? I'm here. Marco, I love Marco's take on Hustle, where he goes, it's so Adam Sandler to be like, hey, I really want to hang out with Dr. J. Let me just write into the script that we're best friends and go way back. And he's just like, yeah, I'm going out with Queen Latifah. Yeah, let me just write that in.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an international scout. Yeah, I'll just write that in. Malcolm Brogdon. This makes a team that went to the finals even better.
Are they the clear favourite for the 1 seed?
For the 1 seed, I don't know if that's a market, but Golden State are still currently title favourites at the moment. But like, anything can happen in the next couple of days.
Let's just play a game. Assuming that like none of these teams trade for Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and all of these teams have made whatever moves they're going to be making.
Yeah.
Is this Boston team better than Miami?
Yeah.
Are they better than Milwaukee?
I don't know. Cause,
are they better than
the Bucks took them to 7 games without Chris Middleton, who averages like 50 points against Boston.
Are they better than Philly with James Harden back on a reasonable deal?
Yeah.
Are they better than the Raptors?
Yeah.
Sans Kevin Durant?
Yeah.
Are they better than the Bulls?
Yeah.
They're obviously going to be better than the Durant and Kyrie Irvingless Nets. They're better than the Hawks. That's it.
So, yeah, I reckon he'll go Bucks Celtics.
Easily top 2 in the conference. Easy. I think they're better than Milwaukee.
All right, let's agree to disagree and hope that we get another. Would this be like the 4th Giannis versus Celtics playoff series?
It would be. I think a healthy Rob will.
Yeah, well, that's a question now, isn't it?
Yeah, but just assume. I think that they're better than Milwaukee for sure.
You know who else had the short-term meniscus surgery to really push for a playoff push? Eric Bledsoe in Phoenix.
What, that year that we were?
Yeah, he had a tiny meniscus repair.
Eric Bledsoe in Phoenix feels like a fucking fever dream.
I tell you what feels like a fever dream: Jalen Brunson signing with the Knicks.
Yeah, no,
that was so long ago.
That's for the end of the pod. Well,
do you want to move on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, bro, this is a move that I think really like puts Boston over the top, and at the cost of absolutely nothing. You gave up 1 semi-rotation player. Also, pour one out for Daniel Tice, who keeps coming back to his basketball home in Boston and getting traded immediately.
Yeah, well, actually, remember when Houston signed him to the taxpayer MLA across 4 years, and you're like, what a shit deal.
Yeah.
He's been traded for value twice.
Yeah. He's a good player, but
I don't think he's worth.
Don't sign bigs to the taxpayer MLE. Don't sign bigs to the full MLE.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Except for JaVale McGee, apparently.
And Dario Saric.
So next piece of news is that the second.
Who's it from?
It's from Woj. Have you heard of him? Yeah.
Wow. Adrian Woj. He's doing work.
The Kings have traded for Kevin Huerter. Atlanta. Well, that's freaking me out. Atlanta received Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, and a 2024 Kings first round pick, which we'll talk about in a second. And the Kings just addressed their white shooting guard position. I actually quite like the Kings.
A time-honoured tradition, the Kings white shooting guard position.
But just let's just talk about this 2024 Sacramento Kings first round pick, because if you just shut your eyes and then someone said to you, "Oh, hey, the Kings traded their own first round pick," you would be like, "Uh-oh," because time has shown that they have very good first round picks. So it's protected in 2024, top 12. Lottery protected 24, and then in 25 it's top 10, then in 26 it's top 10. I misspoke, but roughly that's the protections for the 3 years. What are the odds you reckon that the Kings never give up this pick? Like, what are the odds that the Kings have a top 10 pick for those 3 years, as they have for the last forever?
I think that 2026 is a shout, because I think that by then they might be good enough to be in the late lottery.
All right, now let's quickly move on to talk. I really like this Kings lineup. I don't think they're going to stop anybody at all. But
this Kings lineup on the laptop screen, love it.
Yeah,
this Kings lineup, even thinking about it on the basketball court for 1 second, I'm not as sold.
So Fox, Herter, Barnes, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis. And then coming off the bench, you've got Malik Monk, Rashawn Holmes, Davion Mitchell, and Terrence Davis. That's a really good 9-man group if you want to make the 8 seed. And I think I'm actually going to watch more Kings games than I have in the past.
Nah, you're not.
You don't reckon?
They'll get 15 games into the season. They'll be 5-10, and you'll be like, "Oh, nah, I'm not doing this." That's exactly what's going to happen.
I say this most years, actually. But this seems fun. This seems like a fun.
Does it seem fun? Because I feel like Fox and Sabonis are not a fun combo. Let's get 2 guys who are completely mismatched in their skill sets.
No, what are you talking about?
Let's get one guy who wants to run in transition and struggles as a point guard
and an outlet passer.
And let's get and you threw me off. I'm tongue tied today. One guy who's a fucking elite transition player and struggles as a point guard in the half court, and pair him with another guy who's had really good point guard play in the pick and roll his whole fucking career and doesn't want to run and get in the half court and get in transition. Let's just merge those 2 things together and then surround them with
shooters.
Yeah, good NBA starters and nothing else.
Well, Keegan Murray looks like he'll be a good shooter at the very least, and flexible on defense. Harry Barnes is exactly what I just said. Kevin Huerter can at least shoot the ball. Maybe he'll have a bigger role, and he'll have the ball in his hands.
Kind of lost in the shuffle ultimately from where he was like 2 or 3 years ago, when people were like, "Damn, bro, Kevin Huerter," and now he's
got traded for peanuts.
Yep.
And Malik Monk, while he might not be great at basketball, him and De'Aaron Fox were college teammates. And did you know he scored 50 against Carolina?
No, I think he actually got 47, but.
Rashawn Holmes coming off the bench, if he's still going to be there, or if please Charlotte just trade for him. Davion Mitchell take a step forward. Terrence Davis is a wing that can shoot. I guess.
I'll see this team at the end of November at 5-15.
I just think you throw enough stuff at the wall, eventually they have to make the playoffs. Is this their best?
How many times has someone said that about this team in the last 10 years? The answer is once a year. That's the answer. No, I mean, we famously made our debut in the NBA media landscape by going very early and very hard for the 2019-20 Kings. I'm not doing it again. I'm in wait and see mode.
All right,
I'm in wait and see mode.
I'm gonna watch them for the first 15 games.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark my words.
Next piece of news: John Wall has signed with the Clippers for the taxpayer MLA after agreeing to a buyout with the Houston Rockets. kind of finally, thank goodness, that he's finally actually like, not going to be sitting on the bench doing nothing for a little while. I'm really excited to see what John Wall can do here, because I still think John Wall's a really good player. He's having knee issues doesn't ruin the fact that you're a really good passer. And the Clippers have been able to find these guys who look like they're on the last legs, like Reggie Jackson and Nick Batum, and then just make them good basketball players again in a smaller role. So, like Nick Batum, we thought was cooked, and he had just signed with the Clippers, and then he was like a hot commodity on the free agent market last off season, and then he opted out of his player option and re-signed with the Clippers for more money this year. Also, good on Steve Ballmer for just paying more and more and more money.
But we can't judge these. Don't judge the ones who do it positively. Judge the ones who don't do it negatively.
True.
Don't praise the billionaire for spending money that he has.
True.
But do criticize the Cronkies for being fucking idiots.
All right, John Wall. What do you think he's going to do?
First up, love it. I actually really like it. Between John Wall and Reggie Jackson, you've got 48
2
minutes.
meniscuses?
48 minutes of, at the very least, good point guard play with John Wall, like, potential for better than that. But I was interested, and I just looked it up, what his buyout was. So he was scheduled to make $47 million. He opted into the last year of his deal.
Can I guess?
Yeah, fucking go for it.
I think he, 47 mil?
How much did he give up?
He gave up 6 mil.
6 mil.
I couldn't believe it as well. It's so little.
And then he went and signed a $6 million a year contract. So he gets the whole thing back plus an extra year at 6 mil. That's insane. I'm thinking surely he's given up like 30 mil to get out of here.
Yeah.
What? Like, that's all it takes? Is 6 mil?
I
Fucking
know.
someone buy Russell Westbrook out now. Get this cunt out of there. Fucking hell. Anyway, I like it. It's a low risk move. The taxpayer MLE, like, for a team like the Clippers, is a real way to add talent, and you want to make sure that whoever you bring in, because you're either bringing someone in on 6 mil, the taxpayer MLA, or you bring him in on a minimum. You want to bring in a couple minimum guys, but make sure that the one that you bring in on the taxpayer MLA really hits. I think John Wall is a lot less of a certainty than what you'd usually want from your taxpayer MLA. But I think you can compensate for that uncertainty by saying, like, Kawhi is essentially back. Yeah. Why not have a swing? Yeah. And at a position where we need players.
Yeah. But this team's actually kind of stacked. Like,
now they are.
That's their point guard rotation. Remember, they traded for Robert Covington. They traded for Norman Powell. They've got, obviously, Kawhi, Paul George. They just re-signed Ivica Zubac.
How much did Zubac go? I didn't see that.
Like 8 mil per across 3 years or something.
Yeah, don't mind.
They lost Isaiah Hartenstein, who might be one of the best signings this whole entire offseason outside of like a max guy. He's an exceptional paint defender. He's gone to New York, which it's kind of wild. Gone to New York, and then they re-signed Mitchell, but we'll talk about that later. They literally just only have holes at backup center, and by golly, are they easy to find.
Truly.
Are you going to pick this team to win a title next year?
Nah, but they'll be.
Would you be shocked if they did?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I actually kind of hope they do, because anything to put down the Lakers just makes.
Well, the Lakers aren't going to be in contention anyway.
But just the whole LA, two teams in the town, that sort of stuff.
Streetlights, not spotlights, baby.
We'll move on to the next piece of news, which is that the Denver Nuggets have signed Bruce Brown to a $2 for $13 million deal.
We call that the John Wall.
We call it John Wall. Some other call it the taxpayer MLE, but as you might be aware, the Denver Nuggets aren't in the tax at the moment because they dumped a bit of salary. So this is actually just a portion of the full MLE. That's how he's been signed, which kind of infuriating. But Bruce Brown took less money to sign with Denver. Apparently he had offers for more, but he wanted to go to Denver because of the basketball fit, which I'm like, ooh, this is a very good sign. And the Nets, in that same report, the Nets didn't offer him a deal at all, which is kind of confusing. I guess you've got Ben Simmons, but has he played a game yet? I love the fit of Bruce Brown in Denver. Now, obviously, when he was in Brooklyn, he was playing that weird Biggie Smalls lineup where he's the 6'4" center, and it's just like he's catching the ball on the roll, like in that Draymond position. He's got that little push shot floater. Obviously, hustles extremely hard, and he's sort of Gary Payton before Gary Payton did it, right? I'm so excited to see what he does playing the biggie smalls role while Jokic is on the court. Like obviously Jokic is in Denver's best lineups, but if you play Bruce Brown at the 4 on offense and then just have him guarding the best perimeter defender, the best guard scorer on the other team, like that could be quite interesting. And then all of a sudden you've got a guy who no one looks at on offense whatsoever, but you've got Nikola Jokic who's just going to find him in some weird spots.
Yeah.
And then pairing him with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, all of a sudden you've got you had this major issue of perimeter defense, and obviously having Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. they're not great defenders. You've got KCP and you've got Bruce Brown to slot in and amongst those guys. You could always keep one good perimeter defender on with one good offensive perimeter player. It's looking quite nice,
Yeah, I really like the fit. Sorry, I went too early.
I've still got concerns about the spending by the Cronkies, but for what they had, and yes, they gave up a 2027 first round pick to dump JaMychal Green, but they've turned around and got better basketball fits on this roster to compete for a title next year.
Yeah, I agree, and I particularly love Brown as a really intelligent cutter around Jokic. I think that obviously players who can do that and who have a commitment to movement on offense will really thrive, particularly because anywhere from like 8 feet and in is essentially a layup for him because of that push shot.
Yeah. One thing sort of good and bad here is that the way that the Nuggets were able to trade for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and dump, I'm going to call it a dump because I don't think he's very good, to dump Will Barton's salary, was attaching Monty Morris as the asset going back to Washington. Washington saw him as positive value as opposed to dumping KCP for a late first round pick. And you can do that. You wouldn't have been able to do that a year ago from today, but after seeing Bones flourish in the second half of the season, Kelvin Booth knew that if we do trade Monty Morris for positive value, we're going to have backup point guard and the first guard off the bench already on the roster in Bones Highland. Now, there is a lot of pressure on him. You can read my article saying the pressure is on for Bones Highland.
Where can we read that?
Just at nuglove.com. It's that simple. The pressure is on for Bones Highland to be the first guard off the bench here, but he did a fine job after the All-Star break last year. And if he can't, then maybe Denver don't win a title. But if he can, all of a sudden this lineup's looking very nice. So,
yeah, but also just quietly, like competent point guard players also easy to find. Like
DJ Augustine type. I mean, they've also got Ish Smith.
If we're talking about like Bones not being up to the task, like someone like a DJ Augustine would be better than Bones.
I should have said Ish Smith because he's actually on the roster. This is sort of insurance. But I don't think you win a title with Ish Smith as your backup point guard.
Maybe not, but I'm just saying that there are guys who you can find. Who you can find. It's not like, oh my god, what are we gonna do?
But it was a strength of Denver's that whenever Jokic and Murray are on the bench, you've got Monty Morris, who was third in the league in terms of assist to turnover ratio behind Chris Paul and CJ McCollum. So it's like you've got a guy who Denver's always had excellent bench units, and they are headed by Monty Morris. So, kind of risky to give it up, but Michael Malone loves playing like 8 people in the playoffs. And they have their 8 players right now. They have the starting lineup: Bruce Brown, Bones Highland, and potentially Jeff Green if you want to use that 8th player. So this is the team for Denver. This is who they're running with. Do you pick them to win a title ahead of the Clippers? Do you pick them to win a title ahead of?
No, but I actually think they'll be one of the last 2. I think they'll be in the conference finals this year.
Because at the end of the day, with shooters around Nikola Jokic, you literally cannot stop that.
Murray should have a very limited, recuperation time to get his feel back because he's healthy. They haven't rushed him. There's no risk of any re-injury.
Yeah.
Like, he's been out for so long, he's now, should be essentially ready to go, play 10 games, and then you're fucking looking at Jamal Murray again.
Yeah.
And Porter Jr. will have missed essentially a whole season.
Yeah.
So, there was discussions about him maybe coming back in the playoffs, what's his timetable for return. Instead, you get the extra 4-5 months of rest. So he should be pretty close to healthy as well. So, assuming that he stays healthy, which obviously is a phrase that you say at your own peril, I think that those three guys with some smart moves around the edges, I think that we could be looking at like a high 50s and like deep playoff run kind of team.
And also, because they've already been to conference finals, they've already been the 1 seed in the West, they don't have as much as pressure to prove it. Everyone knows that you put these guys in the playoffs, they can make a serious run.
Yeah.
It's not like... it's not like when they were younger, or when it's not like the Wolves where it's like, oh, I don't know if they're going to make the conference finals. Yeah.
Fucking show me previously to winning the championship. Like, show me in the playoffs. You've been the 1 seed, you've rampaged, but show me.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Jalen Brunson?
Yeah, he changed teams.
Jalen Brunson changed teams for 4 years, 104 to the New York Knicks. Yeah. For those playing along at home, that's $26 million a year, which is roughly $24.2 million per year more than what he was getting paid in Dallas. So a nice bag for the Brunson family. And you, in your article about the Brunson signing, which you can find on thedeep2.com, that's pretty simple, astutely pointed out that all they had to do was hire Brunson's old agent as their GM, sign Brunson's dad to be a coach on the staff, and he'd come. So, lesson for NBA teams trying to recruit free agents, Tampa.
Yeah. You can find all my thoughts on this at thedeep2.com. Do you want to say any comments?
You know what? I actually don't really have anything to say.
All right, cool. It sounds like... Have we been doing this for over 2 hours now?
Nah, we're approaching the mark. We're at 149.
Cool. All right, let's go through some quick hitters. Give us just a couple of sentences after each of these. These are all extensions, by the way.
We're in the extension portion of it.
Zion Williams has signed a $193 million max extension with the New Orleans Pelicans. Thoughts and feelings?
Very excited to see what the protections on this deal are, because David Griffin has said that there would be protections on it, like a Joel Embiid kind of structure.
Has he got injury history?
Who? Zion?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. All right, next one. Darius.
You shouldn't have said that, because I was going to say something funny back, but now we missed the opportunity for a quip.
Frick. Darius Garland signs a $193 million max extension as well.
Thoughts and feelings. I just want to jump in and say here, so to pull the curtain back for the listeners, we prepare a run sheet for every episode that has mainly talking points, but sometimes opinions and directions for the conversation to go. And I've put in here that Garland averaged 21.7 points and 8.6 assists per game, but the Cavs faded in the last portion of the season to miss the playoffs. And you've highlighted that and made a comment with an asterisk, an addendum. And I feel like you think that I'm taking a shot at Garland.
Yeah, but I thought you were, but I read it wrong.
I was not taking a shot at Garland at all. Merely just saying that the Cavs were the 4 seed for a lot of the season and then they missed the playoffs. Nothing to do with Garland. I think he's a great player. Maybe he's not quite as good as Colin Sexton, but that's neither here nor there. Just wanted to clear that up. That we're on the same team here. We're rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, cool. I actually didn't see the Cavs part when I saw this. I was quite sleepy when I woke up at 12. Colin Sexton, still a free agent.
Yeah. Let's fucking wait and see.
Let's wait and see.
The forgotten man.
Yeah, cool.
Devin Booker, 4 for 224. Cat also signed the same thing, which was their max extensions. Not a lot to be said about that. Jar got 5 for 193, the same as Garland, but also the Rose rule applies, so that if he hits his All-NBA criteria, he'll be at 231, I believe. Good coin.
Good money if you get it.
This is the one that I actually want to maybe have a paragraph rather than a few sentences on.
Okay.
Mitchell Robinson, 4 for 60 to return to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
That's fucking outrageous.
Right after they signed arguably the best high/low value center in Isaiah Hartenstein.
Fucking criminal that they're paying $15 million for this guy.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, he's good. But like $15 million? I can't get my head around it, to be honest. Like it seems like one of the more egregious overpays. Like I'd be talking about this guy in terms of value at like maximum MLE. We'd be looking at 9-10.
What's this? $5 million more than that.
$20 million over the duration of the contract.
Yeah.
It's not child's play. It's not child's play at all.
I don't know why they did that. I reckon they could have let him walk.
Yeah, fully. Oh, I'll just trade him to Charlotte.
Would you rather have Mitch Robert 4 for 60 or JaVale McGee at 3 for 28 or whatever.
Well, 3 for 20 for JaVale.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'd rather have JaVale.
It's
Mitch Roberts a better player, but like not at
Not
2.5 times the average value.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Zach LaVine got 5 for 215 and a little bit of respect,
He
which
got
he
the
was looking
respect
for.
he deserves.
Congratulations, Zach. All it took was some rumours and quips that you were going to leave. Damian Lillard is eligible for a 2 for 100 extension, but he's going to wait and see how this offseason goes before committing. This is the first piece of news that we've seen from Damian Lillard of him not actively committing or wanting to be there.
Well, since last offseason.
Yeah.
Last offseason was when all of the storm was brewing.
But was that from him or was that from
No, that was from
other
him.
people?
That was from him.
True, there was all the Chris Haynes reports.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, I misspoke.
Also, no, but you're right, though, that it is the first time in a long time that he hasn't been anything less than outwardly.
Yeah, I love Portland.
Yeah, outwardly, I love Portland.
Also,
What's
I'd
he
say
talking about? Wait and see how the off-season goes.
they've done everything.
It's done.
They re-signed Dirk. They
re-signed Ant Simons as well for
Yeah,
4 for 100.
And they traded.
Which
for
you know
Grant.
what we call that where I'm from?
What?
The Giannis deal. But now cunts like Ant Simons are getting the Giannis deal.
You know how Twitter's both the best app and the worst app?
No, I actually don't have it.
So someone was just talking about like Shade and Sharp, and then someone was like, "Oh, we can trade him." And then there's this Portland fan, ugly Portland graphic is his profile picture, and he goes, "Nah, I wouldn't mind it if Dame left because like."
Shade and Sharp got next.
Yeah, legit. Ant and Shade and Sharp could be one of the best backcourts in the league.
Yeah.
And then someone retweeted it and was like, "This app is incredible. Like, who sees Ant and it's just like he could be an MVP."
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you just watch?
That's tough.
Do you just watch like what's that Seattle Pro-Am? Do you just watch the Pro-Am highlights?
Yeah, literally.
If so, Jordan Poole did a really good job last year.
Well, the other thing that they did is they wrapped up Nurk on a 4 for 70, which
the exact same deal they signed Evan Turner to a couple of years ago.
Cursed. What do you think about that? 17 and a half a year for Nurk.
I don't like Nurk.
Yeah.
I'd rather 17 and a half for Nurk than 15 for Mitch Robb. But Nurk, because Nurk is just a better player and a better fit. But is he going to play basketball games?
What if he got healthy? Is that possible that he could get back to his physical form from 3 years ago?
Do you know how old he is?
What, like 27?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like he's a million?
But he had, what did he have? He had the broken leg, which was the killer.
Yeah, that'll
When
do
a
it.
fucking 280-pound man breaks his leg, it's difficult to come back from. But, I feel like I've said this maybe 100 times on this podcast over the last 3 years, but there was a period there where he was legit top 5 and he was like 17 and 10 with 5 assists and like a good positional D. If you ever got that Nurk back, 17 in a year is a steal. Like that's a 25-a-year player, but obviously the last 2 seasons he's been injured and bad, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a long contract as well, so it's not even a really good trade chip.
Yeah.
If they gave him a 2 for 35, bam, all of a sudden, he essentially plays this year and becomes an expiring, a good expiring, or becomes salary filler or whatever you need from him. But 4 years, he probably has no trade value right now.
Obviously, another destination that DeAndre Ayton can't go to anymore. So, yeah, the
Unless
options
we take Nurk back, oh baby,
the options for DA are dwindling.
Yeah. Well, luckily Kevin Durant and Brooklyn seems like an option.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a good place to leave it. I think you mentioned this at the top. I think we have timed this really well because hopefully everything that we've talked about will still be relevant.
It still will. The contracts are still signed.
Yeah. We did devote a large chunk talking about Kevin Durant. So if I wake up tomorrow morning and I see that Kevin Durant's been fucking traded, I'm going to be pretty salty.
Doesn't seem like anything's happening. But, yeah, Dante, is that the longest pod we've ever recorded?
It's got to be fucking top 1, if not the longest.
I'll speak to you next week.
Sounds good.
If you look for PointsBet's stock exchange listing, you'll find a bucket of jargon and doublespeak as they're considered a, quote, wagering services operator, unquote. That's a corporate stretch for the colloquial friendly brogan or, hey, look, it's Chris Bosh kind of image they're sending off with their targeted advertising. I don't know about you, but take me back to the days when former pro sports players signed brand deals with hair loss clinics or Fujitsu aircons, not, quote, wagering service providers.
If you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you come across the two of our faces morphed into one, would that make you listen to our podcast more? I mean, if it does, let us know and we'll start doing it. But when I see a few NBA players' faces morphed into one, it doesn't make me want to pull out my wallet and donate some money to my local wagering services provider.
The worst part is we're coming to accept it. Wagering service provider ads are so ingrained in our sports, and the way sports is delivered to us, it's almost impossible to avoid. 3/4 of Australian children aged between 8 and 16 years who watch sport think that betting on sport is normal and can name one or more sport betting companies. When I was in school, I was struggling to remember Pokemon names, and I'd be furious if I knew that brain power was being used to put towards wagering service providers and not them.
The wagering service providers know exactly who to target. It's not okay to let them ingrain themselves in young Australians' minds. It's not okay to target people in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not okay for gambling companies to wield so much influence in the world of sports. To help kick gambling out of sport, use your voice and sign the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/.